Imagine this. The President of the United States calls in every top general and admiral in the country, hundreds of them, and warns them directly, "If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. But there goes your rank, and there goes your future." This isn't a movie script. This just happened. And it may be one of the most dramatic challenges to America's civil-military traditions in modern history. Today we're breaking down what went down at Quantico, why Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gathered the nation's military brass, and what this could mean for the future of democracy and security in the United States. Stay tuned, because this story is bigger than one meeting. It could redefine America's armed forces. Last week, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issued an unusual order. All U.S. generals and admirals holding the rank of 1 star or higher were told to gather at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia. No explanation was given in advance. This is not normal. Normally, military conferences are planned months in advance, with clear agendas. But this was sudden, urgent, and mysterious. To make it happen, generals were flown in from commands across the globe. The cost? Immense. The purpose? Still unclear, until the meeting began. When the gathering opened, Secretary Hegseth made the message clear. The military was about to undergo a cultural revolution. He railed against what he called politically correct leadership in the Pentagon. He condemned diversity programs and woke ideology, portraying them as distractions from the military's true purpose, warfighting. Then he laid out changes. Physical fitness standards will now be based solely on the highest male benchmarks, regardless of gender. Grooming standards will tighten. Beards and what he described as unprofessional appearances are no longer acceptable. And most striking of all, he told the assembled generals that if his words made them uncomfortable, they should resign immediately. In short, Hegseth framed the meeting as a choice: get on board with his vision or step aside. Then came the main event. President Trump took the stage. Even before arriving at Quantico, Trump had told reporters he would fire generals on the spot if they didn't align with him. At the podium, he doubled down, warning that dissent meant the end of a career. For over an hour, Trump spoke, not in a careful policy outline, but in a stream of themes and grievances. He touched on tariffs, NATO, and even Nobel Prizes. But the recurring theme was simple. The U.S. military must be tougher, more loyal, and stripped of what he called weakness. He praised the idea of promotions based only on merit, dismissed diversity initiatives as dangerous distractions, and declared that America was facing an invasion from within. He was not just talking about immigration at the border. He framed it as an internal war, one that could justify using military power inside U.S. cities. The generals listened. But they did not cheer. They did not clap. In military culture, overt displays of support for partisan rhetoric are avoided. But the silence was telling. To understand why this matters, you need to know one core principle. In the U.S., the military is apolitical. Officers do not serve a party or a president. They swear an oath to the Constitution. Civilian leaders do direct the military, yes. But threatening demotions and careers if generals disagree with political ideology is a sharp departure from that norm. It risks turning the military into a partisan tool instead of a neutral institution. And Trump's talk of deploying the military into American cities adds even more concern. The Posse Comitatus Act was designed to prevent exactly that, the use of the U.S. military for domestic law enforcement. But the rhetoric in Quantico suggested a willingness to cross that line. So what happens next? First, morale could take a hit. Generals and admirals may feel trapped, unable to speak candidly, fearing that dissent equals career suicide. That undermines honest military advice, which presidents rely on in crises. Second, we may see more purges. Already, Hegseth has fired or forced out senior officers and military lawyers. This meeting looked like the opening act of a much wider reshaping of the chain of command. Third, the timing couldn't be worse. The federal government is on the edge of a shutdown, creating financial and logistical strain. Flying in generals from across the globe for a partisan-style gathering only adds to the criticism. And finally, there's the global stage. Rivals like China, Russia, and Iran are watching closely. They see America's internal military turmoil not just as drama, but as potential weakness. This meeting may go down as a historic turning point. For Trump and Hegseth, it was about reawakening what they call the warrior spirit and stripping away what they view as softness in the ranks. But for critics, it represents something far more dangerous. A politicized military, pressured to adopt ideology rather than remaining an impartial defender of the Constitution. If this continues, the US could face a future where generals are chosen for loyalty, not ability. Where internal dissent is crushed. And where the military is pulled deeper into domestic politics. That path does not lead to stability. It leads to the erosion of democratic guardrails that have held for centuries. So where does America go from here? Will senior officers comply silently, or will some resign in protest? Will Congress push back against a politicized Pentagon, or remain divided along party lines? And most importantly, will the American people accept a military reshaped not by security needs, but by partisan agendas? These are questions that don't just affect Washington. They affect every American, every ally, and every adversary watching from abroad. What happened at Quantico wasn't just a meeting. It was a confrontation between the military's traditional neutrality and a president demanding loyalty. It may have been framed as a call to toughness. But beneath the speeches and applause lines lies something much more serious. The possibility that the United States military, one of the most powerful institutions on Earth, could be transformed into a political weapon. That's why this story matters. That's why the world is watching. So what do you think? Is Trump right to demand these changes? Or is America now on a dangerous path toward politicizing its military? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this story isn't over. The next chapter may be even bigger.